I've had the chance to play the closed beta test for the much anticipated Zenless Zone Zero, the newest game from Hoyoverse, the makers of Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail that is scheduled to release sometime in 2024. I've been able to play it for just over 100 hours and I've got a lot to say about it, both the good and the bad. Some things you may want to hear, as well as some things that you may not necessarily like. It's not just going to be about, does it have the hottest waifus and husbandos, and other superficial topics like that, although that is important to this review and the enjoyment of the game. If you aren't a fan of any of the characters' designs, you are most likely not going to have a good time controlling them. Luckily, however, Hoyoverse have mastered the art of creating appealing designs, in all sorts of different ways, so you'll have no problems finding a character you'll like. That is to say, there is a lot of information that I want to convey to you all after all the time I've spent playing this game. I've done pretty much all of the content that was available to me in the closed beta test, with the exception of getting max rank on all the side missions or unlocking certain achievements. I've also gotten to play with just about every single character, some more than others, so I have a good grasp on how each of them work individually, but also as part of a core team. So stay tuned, as this will be a very thorough overview of the complete Zenless Zone Zero experience, so you know what you're in for when you try out the game. Now let's talk about the two reasons why most people are probably interested in Zenless Zone Zero. Those being the characters and the combat. But let's start with the combat. As you can see from the gameplay in the background, it's all very fluid and over the top, as you can seamlessly transition between doing parries and perfect dodges into full combos, charged attacks, all the while swapping between three different characters. Everything has a flair of exaggerated movements and expressions. You can really feel the punch behind some of the heavier attacks, and the characters' main skills, and especially their ultimates, have some gorgeous animations. Combine that with fast and intuitive gameplay as well as fantastic sound design, and you end up with a really satisfying experience overall. Now of course, how deep the combat is going to depend on your team composition and what kind of tactics you're going to go with it. That is to say that some characters' kits are a bit more complex than others, so let's go over them to give you some examples. Take this guy for example. His name is Ben Bigger and he's a bear. As such, he's one of the slowest and beefiest characters in the game, and he has the ability to parry incoming attacks. And by doing so, you can unleash a really powerful and satisfying counter. A really cool thing about this character is that if you put him on the same team as Coletta Belobog, the president of Belobog Industries, he is also going to be present in some of her attack strings as well as her ultimate, making the combo of these two characters a lot more powerful. Another character I really enjoyed using was Von Lycan, a really fast attacker that was all about dodging and keep on pressuring the enemies with a barrage of attacks that also froze the enemies, making them unable to act, thus rendering them harmless and giving you a big window of opportunity to dish out some good damage. There's all kinds of characters, each with their own unique twist, with some focused on applying debuffs on the enemies, while some others are more reliant on crowd control or even increasing the team's overall performance. That being said, there isn't any character that categorically fits into the support or healer role. You see, pretty much every single character in ZZZ, including the characters that I was referring to as being able to give your teams buffs, are all essentially damage dealers. So if that is something that is going to stay the same moving forward into the game's release, you'll be left with no real way to heal yourself in the middle of combat, so you better keep on perfect dodging and parrying. Otherwise, you're just going to have to either use consumable items or find a healing station in the game's traversal mechanic. But let's put a pin on that. So when it comes to team composition, you can try to go all out with as much damage as possible, or you can try to use some status effects and such to win the odds in your favor. In any case, I found that in Zenless Zone Zero, it's not all about the S-rank characters. I often actually enjoyed the A-rank characters more than the S-rank characters, simply because of how their kits functioned and would interact with other party members. But let's also talk about the enemies, because I think that they do a good job in this game making the enemies stand out and have some really cool designs. So these hollows that you fight, that are essentially corrupted creatures, lend themselves very well to the environment and the overall aesthetic of the entire game. You yourself, as the main character, take on the role of a proxy, which is a character that goes on to help these main characters and the characters you'll be summoning in the game traverse through difficult scenarios and just help them save the day. It's a bit of a shame that you can't control any of the characters you have received throughout your playtime. You only really end up controlling the main character, which is something that I would like to see changed in the future. That being said, you'll be exploring the neon cyberpunk aesthetic of the gorgeous city of New Eridu, which will essentially act like a hub, where you will build relationships with various characters, explore a variety of shops offering combat supplies, relax by playing some minigames at the arcade, which I actually ended up spending way too much time there, and prepare before you head out on a quest. Speaking of which, let's talk about how you'll be advancing through quests and missions. Story quests will often have an extremely well animated cutscene where every movement is exaggerated and a lot of emphasis is put into their expressions. It's some of the best character acting I've seen in just about any video game, and it makes the already colorful and stylistic game look even more appealing. You'll also sometimes have these comic book style cutscenes, and then there's the more simple ones where it's just the characters talking on screen. From there, you'll embark onto your mission and enter the hollow exploration phase, which is a bit of a more contentious topic. As the proxy, your role here is to basically guide the party through any obstacles they may encounter. You move through these television screens and you choose which direction to go to complete side objectives and gather as many rewards as possible, find hidden paths, avoid traps, and solve all kinds of puzzles. Figuring out the right path to take can be quite fun and rewarding. Both in the sense that that's how you can ensure you receive a good rank when you complete the quest and that you get the most amount of rewards possible, but also because some of these puzzles are actually fun. That being said, I felt like these sections detracted from the combat, the main gameplay experience, and since we can't even explore the maps with the characters we summon, that's the only time we get to control them. And as I have established at the beginning, the characters and the combat are likely the two major reasons why you would want to play this game. As such, hollow exploration would sometimes leave me feeling bored, in anticipation for the next combat scenario, since that's where all the fun is. It also doesn't help that in most of the missions, you have no way to quickly restart or go back a couple of steps on the mission. So if you accidentally trigger, let's say, a combat that ends up making you progress to a different zone, before you get all the side objectives in the previous one, you won't be able to get an S rank at the end of the quest unless you decide to quit and start over, or simply do the same mission a second time. This system is something that has been heavily discussed online, and there is still a chance that it will be changed given all the feedback Hoyoverse has received, but it's something to keep in mind as it plays a major role in your progression through the game. Again, every single time you go into a mission, you're going to encounter this, so let's just hope that the developers listen to our feedback and make this system less tedious and more engaging. There's also special types of missions like the rally commissions, where you can challenge bosses on different levels as you assess your team's strength and enjoy the pure thrill of combat. And then there's my favorite parts of all of Zenless Zone Zero, which is the Hollow Zero. It's essentially a roguelike game mode that is also the most challenging aspect of the game. So not only do you have to keep in mind your team composition, and you need to pay attention to what you're doing in combat, try to parry and dodge as much as possible, and have a perfect uptime on all of your skills and swaps, but you're also going to be able to trigger diverse random buffs and special events along the way as you further progress through this game mode. Honestly, I've been having a lot more fun than I expected with Zenless Zone Zero. Again, there is a little bit of an aspect that I dislike, mostly about the hollow exploration, but when you're actually in combat fighting against enemies, doing perfect dodges and swapping between characters to get the most damage output at the right time, it all feels incredible. And given that this game will be multi-platform, available on PC, consoles and even mobile, and featuring cross-platform at release, just about anyone will be able to hop into this game and have a lot of fun. So if you are interested in Zenless Zone Zero, make sure you enter the pre-registration, the link to it will be in the description below. My name is Dark Hero, thank you all so much for watching and I'll see you all next time.